Ambassador Elena Rook stood at the window of her office, gazing out over the vast expanse of the Galactic Council building. The city of Theron Prime stretched below her, a dizzying sprawl of sleek spires and gleaming transport hubs. It was a place where the universe's most powerful factions converged, their representatives draped in layers of diplomacy, secrecy, and calculated gestures. Here, Earth was still seen as insignificant, a young planet struggling to find its place in a universe of ancient empires. Elena had never been a stranger to politics. But nothing could prepare her for the delicate task she had been assigned, preserving Earth's neutrality in a galactic war that had already begun to tear the fabric of the Alliance apart. The Varkar Dominion, a ruthless, technologically advanced species, had launched a series of aggressive campaigns across unprotected sectors. Their influence was spreading, slowly choking the life out of anyone who stood in their way. But Earth had remained untouched, for now. Elena's communicator buzzed on her desk, breaking her reverie. She turned away from the window, straightening her black diplomatic jacket. The transmission was from her superior, Ambassador Yarrick, Earth's highest-ranking representative in the Council. Ambassador Rook, Jarrek's voice crackled through the speaker, stern and direct. We've received troubling reports from the Rider system. It appears the Varkar Dominion has accelerated their encroachment. We need a resolution, and we need it fast. Elena leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. Another incursion? This is escalating too quickly. The Council can't ignore this any longer. The Varkar Dominion has been testing the limits for months. It's only a matter of time before they set their sights on Earth. Exactly. And there are whispers that the other factions are preparing to pick sides. Earth is dangerously close to being drawn into the conflict. Your task is simple: continue to maintain neutrality, but remain vigilant. We cannot afford to make an enemy of the Dominion, or anyone else. Elena glanced out the window once more, her gaze hardening. Understood. But we both know that neutrality won't protect us forever. There was a pause on the line before Yarrick responded, his voice a little quieter. I trust you'll keep that in mind. I'll be sending additional intel your way shortly. Keep your options open, Rook. We may need to act sooner than expected. The line went silent, and Elena was left alone with her thoughts. Yarrick was right. Earth's neutral stance was a fragile thing, balancing on a knife's edge. The galactic factions, once unified in their shared goal of peace, had started splintering. The Dominion's growing aggression was pushing the other factions to pick sides, some willing to align with the ruthless Varkar, while others hoped to use Earth as leverage in the struggle. Elena could feel the weight of the responsibility pressing down on her. She had studied every possible angle, every report, every negotiation, every historical conflict. But this was different. There was a darkness brewing in the galaxy, a storm that seemed impossible to avoid. And Earth was right in its path. As she stood up and walked over to the communication console, a sudden alert flashed on the screen. A coded message from the Galactic Council's Intelligence Division. Her pulse quickened as she opened the message, eyes scanning the encrypted text. The message was clear: the Varkar Dominion had already begun covert operations in Earth's unprotected colonies. Supply lines had been sabotaged, mining operations hijacked, and communications were being intercepted. It was more than just an invasion, it was a deliberate act of aggression. Damn it, Elena muttered, her fingers trembling as she hit a few commands on the console, requesting immediate access to the Council's live feed. The broadcast flickered to life, and the familiar faces of the Council's diplomatic body appeared. She had seen them all before, representatives of the Ethel, the Coulter, the Ziri, and the smaller factions that made up the Galactic Council. They had long treated Earth with suspicion, dismissing humanity as nothing more than an untested experiment in diplomacy. But now they were facing something far more dangerous. She quickly read through the Council's latest communications, noting the increasing pressure from the Coulter and Ziri. Both factions were wary of the Varkar's growing power and seemed eager to form an alliance with Earth. They wanted to offer Earth military support in exchange for joining their side. Elena knew that even an offer of support came with strings attached. These factions weren't interested in saving Earth, they were interested in using Earth as a pawn. A chime broke her concentration. It was a message from her aide, Lyra. Elena's brow furrowed as she read the brief note. Urgent. Ambassador Kyler of the Varker Dominion requests a private meeting. Elena felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Zarek Kyler, the supreme commander of the Varker forces, was a master of manipulation. His cold, calculating nature had made him one of the most feared figures in the galaxy. His request for a meeting was not a gesture of diplomacy, it was a calculated move, one meant to test Earth's resolve. Her mind raced. Was he offering an olive branch? Or was he preparing to make Earth an offer it couldn't refuse? She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Lyra, tell Kyler I'll meet him in 1 hour. In person. The aide's voice crackled through the communicator. Understood, Ambassador. I'll inform him immediately. Elena turned to face the large mirror on the wall. She looked at her reflection, tired eyes, hair slightly tousled from hours of work, but determination burning in her chest. This was the moment. The diplomatic meeting with Kyler could decide the fate of Earth. As she made her way to the council's meeting chambers, the corridors seemed colder than usual. The air was thick with tension. Each step echoed like a drumbeat in the silence. She knew the stakes. No one else on this planet had the power to shift the course of history. And right now, Elena Rook was the only thing standing between Earth and the collapse of everything they'd fought for. The doors to the meeting chamber opened, and there, seated at the far end of the room, was Zarek Kyler, his piercing, dark eyes studying her as if calculating her every move. Ambassador Rook, he said, his voice smooth, almost too calm. I trust you've received my message. I hope you understand the gravity of our situation. Elena stepped forward, meeting his gaze with the confidence she could muster. I understand perfectly, Kyler. But I wonder, do you? The tension in the room was palpable. Zarek Kyler's sharp, unblinking gaze never left Elena as she crossed the threshold of the meeting chamber. The dimly lit room, adorned with stark alien art, felt colder now than it ever had. Kyler's presence alone could freeze any conversation in its tracks, and his voice carried a weight that crushed any hope of easy diplomacy. Ambassador Rook, he said again, his tone unhurried, almost mockingly polite. I trust you've come to understand the necessity of our meeting. Elena stood tall, her expression controlled, though her mind raced. Kyler was a master of games, every word, every look from him was a calculated move. She had heard stories, of course, of his ruthless conquests, of entire systems swallowed by his ambition, and the rumors that he never forgave a slight. She couldn't afford to show weakness now. She would not let him think for 1 second that Earth could be manipulated. You requested this meeting, Elena replied evenly, her voice steady but laced with an edge. What is it that you want from Earth, Kyler? Kyler's lips curved into a smile, one that didn't reach his eyes. What I want, Ambassador, is very simple. I want Earth to take its place among the stars, not as an afterthought, but as a true player in this galactic chess game. You've been sitting on the sidelines, refusing to commit to any side in this war. You've been diplomatic. He leaned forward, his fingers steepled. But the galaxy isn't a place for diplomacy anymore. Not with the stakes this high. The words hung in the air between them, a subtle threat wrapped in politeness. Elena forced herself to remain calm, focusing on the details of his message, trying to unravel his true intentions. Is this why you're here? She asked. To offer Earth a seat at your table? To join your empire? Kyler laughed softly, the sound as cold as ice. Ambassador Rook, I don't offer Earth a seat at my table. I offer you the chance to survive. You've seen the reports. The Varker Dominion is expanding its influence across the galaxy. And soon, Earth will be either an ally or an enemy. I leave that choice to you. There it was, the true motive. Kyler wasn't offering Earth power, he was offering them survival under his rule. It was a common tactic, one that relied on fear and the subtle manipulation of desperation. But Elena wasn't desperate. Not yet. I don't need your offer, Kyler, she said sharply, her words cutting through the thick tension. Earth doesn't need your protection, and we certainly don't need your manipulation. Kyler's smile faltered, just for a moment. He rose slowly from his seat, towering over Elena. You underestimate me, Ambassador. And worse, you underestimate the stakes. Earth may be strong, but you are not yet prepared for what is coming. Your colonies are already under threat. Supplies are being sabotaged. Your communication lines have been intercepted. But I suppose you've already noticed that, haven't you? Elena froze, a cold shiver running down her spine. Her heart quickened, and she instinctively reached for her communicator. The reports, the secret messages from Earth's intelligence that had been trickling in over the past few days, they had all pointed to sabotage, but it had always been dismissed as random occurrences, accidents, anomalies. But now, in this cold, calculating moment, Elena realized that the sabotage was orchestrated. It wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It was a strategy. You've already made your move, Elena said, her voice low but steady, fighting the rising fury within her. You've been playing both sides, keeping Earth in the dark while you spread your influence. And now you come here, offering us a choice that isn't really a choice at all. Kyler stepped closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The choice is yours, Ambassador. You can accept the inevitable and align with me, your survival guaranteed, your resources secure. Or you can continue pretending that Earth's place in the galaxy isn't at risk. But make no mistake, the war is already here. The Dominion will sweep across your colonies, and Earth will be helpless to stop it. The question is, how many millions of lives are you willing to sacrifice for your pride? Elena took a step back, forcing herself to remain composed, her mind racing. Kyler's words were chilling, but they weren't the truth, not entirely. Earth had survived against all odds before. Humans were resilient, and they wouldn't cower under the threat of tyranny. They wouldn't be his pawns. Your threats don't scare me, Kyler, Elena said, standing straighter, refusing to show fear. Earth will not bend to your will. You've underestimated humanity for far too long. Kyler studied her for a moment, and for a brief second, Elena wondered if he was considering her words. Then, with a slow shake of his head, he turned toward the large viewport overlooking the city of Theron Prime. I'm not underestimating you, Ambassador. I'm offering you the choice to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. The Varker Dominion is not the enemy you think it is. I am offering you protection. All you need to do is accept it. Elena's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, fear, doubt, determination. The Dominion was a powerful force, and Earth's neutrality had always been its greatest strength. But now, she realized, their neutrality had made them a target. Kyler wasn't just offering a way out, he was presenting Earth with a no-win scenario. Accepting his terms meant giving up their freedom, and rejecting them meant risking the annihilation of everything they had built. Protection? Elena said, her voice edged with scorn. You speak of protection as if it's a gift. It's nothing more than a leash. I won't let Earth become your subject. Kyler turned back to face her, his expression unreadable. Then you leave me no choice, Ambassador. But remember, when Earth is finally on its knees, don't come begging for my help. Elena's fists clenched at her sides. The finality of his words hit her like a hammer, but she wasn't about to give in. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. I'll take my chances without you, Kyler, she said, her voice unwavering. Kyler's lips curled into a cruel smile. Very well. But remember, Ambassador Rook, the moment you choose to oppose the Dominion, there will be no turning back. With that, he turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving Elena standing alone, the weight of her decision settling over her like a storm. The galaxy was changing, and Earth's future hung in the balance. But Elena had made her choice. Now, the fight to protect Earth had truly begun. The day Elena Rook had dreaded had arrived. She stood before the Galactic Council, her mind racing, heart pounding in her chest. The Grand Chamber, as vast and imposing as always, now felt like a cage, its walls closing in on her. The council members were assembled in their seats, silent and watchful, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Elena's every move, every word, would be scrutinized. She had made her decision. Earth would no longer remain a passive player in this galactic struggle. As Elena stepped forward to the central podium, a murmur of anticipation rippled through the room. The quiet tension felt like static in the air. Ambassador Kyler was present, seated among the alien dignitaries, his cold eyes fixed on her. He had already made his intentions clear. Earth's neutrality would either be its salvation or its downfall. And now, Elena was about to force the galaxy to reckon with humanity's strength. She cleared her throat, steadying herself before speaking. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," she began, her voice firm, unyielding. "I come before you today with a decision that will forever alter the course of history. Earth can no longer afford to sit idly by while empires wage war over our future. We have been silent too long. The time for neutrality has ended." The room fell deathly silent. The weight of her words settled over the council like a shroud. Elena could see the surprise in their eyes, the disbelief. They had expected diplomacy, perhaps even a concession. They had not expected this. Kyler's smirk tightened, his lips pressed into a thin line. He had underestimated her. "For months, we have watched as the Varker Dominion spreads its influence, manipulating trade routes, sabotaging our colonies, and threatening the very survival of Earth," Elena continued, her voice rising with the force of her conviction. "You all know the truth. The Dominion's actions are not only a threat to our way of life, but to the balance of power in this galaxy. This is no longer a diplomatic matter. This is survival." The council's members exchanged uneasy glances. Elena knew that some were already swaying, their alliances shaky, their fear of the Varker Dominion outweighing any loyalty to their current allegiances. Others, however, were still resistant. The idea of Earth entering the war, an unknown, untested power, was an unsettling prospect. But Elena had no choice. Earth could not hide any longer. "You have heard the warnings," she pressed on, pacing slowly, her eyes locking with each council member in turn. "Earth's entry into this war will tip the scales. We are not a small, insignificant colony. We have resources, technology, and most importantly, we have the will to fight. We may be young in the eyes of the galaxy, but we are no longer a pawn. We are a force to be reckoned with." A murmur spread through the room, some in agreement, others still unsure. Then, as if on cue, a voice called out from the far end of the chamber. "And what exactly do you propose, Ambassador? What makes Earth believe it has the strength to take on the Varker Dominion?" Elena turned, her gaze hardening as she faced the speaker, a representative of the Ziri, an insectoid species with sharp, angular features. His voice dripped with skepticism. "I propose a simple truth," she said coldly, her eyes narrowing. "We will stand with those who stand against tyranny. Earth will form alliances where necessary, but make no mistake, we will not be your pawns in this war. The time has come for humanity to stand tall, to claim our place among the stars." The council was silent again, the room heavy with the weight of her words. For a moment, Elena thought she might have failed. That they would dismiss Earth's threat as nothing more than bravado. But then, the voice of the Ethel representative broke through the tension. "I agree with Ambassador Rook," the Ethel diplomat said, his deep, resonant voice carrying across the room. "It's time to stop pretending that Earth can be ignored. The Dominion is far too dangerous to be left unchecked. We will not stand by and let them destroy what we've worked for." The Ziri representative hissed, but there was no denying the shift in the atmosphere. Elena's words had found an ally. Another voice joined in, this time from the Coulter delegation. "The Ethel speak the truth. Earth has potential. We have seen what you are capable of in the past. If you're willing to fight alongside us, we can form a formidable alliance." Elena's heart skipped a beat. The Coulter had been hesitant, but this was more than she had hoped for. The Ziri representative growled under his breath, clearly displeased with the shifting tides. Enough of this, Kyler interjected, his voice cold and commanding. This is folly, Ambassador. Earth's entry into this war will not only destabilize the balance but ensure its own destruction. You may think you can handle the Varkar Dominion, but you are nothing more than ants trying to challenge the gods. I offer you peace, I offer you power, and this is how you respond. Elena met his gaze, unwavering. Your offer is not peace, Kyler. It is subjugation. You would have Earth bow to you, to your empire. We will not be your slaves. Kyler's expression faltered for just a moment, a flicker of something, perhaps respect, flashing behind his eyes. But then, his demeanor returned to its usual cold calculation. You are making a grave mistake, Ambassador. Earth will be crushed, and when that happens, you will have no one to blame but yourselves. The words were heavy with threat, but Elena's resolve did not falter. Then we will face whatever comes, Kyler. But know this, we will face it on our own terms. A deafening silence followed her declaration. The council chamber was still, every gaze fixed on her. The moment had arrived, the decision was no longer in the hands of the council. Earth had spoken, and now the galaxy would listen. After what seemed like an eternity, the head of the council, an elderly diplomat from the Zathar species, stood. His eyes were deep and calculating as he surveyed the room. Ambassador Rook, he said, his voice echoing across the chamber. It is clear that Earth has made its position known. This will not be taken lightly. The galaxy is changing, and the path you have chosen will have consequences, for better or worse. We will stand with you, or against you. The room erupted in a mix of murmurs and whispered conversations. Earth had thrown its hat into the ring, and now, there was no turning back. Elena felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her, but she also felt something else, a surge of power, of purpose. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. Now, they would know exactly what Earth was capable of. As the council's vote began, Elena's mind raced. The road ahead would not be easy, but one thing was certain, Earth's war had begun.